Think your job is rough? Imagine betting lunch against poison. Royal tasters swallowed first, so emperors kept breathing later. Victorian boys crawled chimneys while soot burned lungs. Plague doctors wore beaks, and radium painters' lips glowed. Canaries went silent in mines seconds before crews collapsed. Tokyo's Oshiya packed commuters so doors finally shut. An ornamental hermit signed contracts promising silence and beards. A lab technician feeds mosquitoes directly from their forearm. Stay for 39 true jobs stranger than fiction. Royal food taster for poisoned meals. A life saved could hinge on one nervous bite. Courts from ancient Persia to Rome employed official tasters. Emperor Claudius notoriously relied on halotus during paranoid banquets. If dishes were tainted, the taster collapsed first. Poison fears rose with succession plots and court intrigue. Tasters learned antidotes, symptom signs, and safe preparation tricks. Some meals cooled, silver darkened, and cats sampled scraps. But plots persisted, because killers favored slow, delayed toxins. The job promised access, danger, and blame when emperors died. Victorian chimney sweep boys in narrow flues. Tiny shoulders meant tiny chances of getting back out. In 19th century Britain, masters sent boys up flues. They scraped soot while breathing creosote dust and heat. Scrotal cancer appeared early. Surgeons noticed occupational patterns. Campaigners like Lord Shaftesbury pushed reforms and inspections. Sweeping devices with rods finally replaced climbing children. But rural houses kept hiring kids long after laws. A few boys lit straw fires to clear choke points. Some survived, grew into masters, and repeated the cycle. Plague doctor with beaked mask and herbs. That bird mask promised protection. It mostly promised superstition. During 17th century outbreaks, cities hired contract plague doctors. Physicians like Charles Delorme described the beaked outfit. Herbs stuffed inside supposedly filtered miasma or bad air. They carried canes, measured distance, and logged household cases. Quarantines, not costumes, did most of the heavy lifting. Pay could include immunity from taxes and burial fees. Some doctors fled outbreaks, others died performing grim rounds. The beak stayed iconic, even as germ theory advanced. Snake oil salesman, peddling miracle cures. Crowds cheered the pitch. Regulators later read the label. Clark Stanley wowed fairs with rattlesnakes and sizzling bottles. He sold snake oil liniment for nearly every ache. Around 1917, inspectors analyzed samples and found mineral oil. Capsaicin, turpentine, and camphor replaced any supposed snake extract. Federal actions followed, and the phrase became cultural shorthand. Real traditional remedies existed, but most pitches sold theater. Newspapers loved the showmanship. Buyers loved hopeful promises. The bottle outlasted the snake, which tells you plenty. Whipping boy, punished for the prince. The story survives. The paperwork is suspiciously thin. Tudor and Stuart courts allegedly whipped stand-ins for princes. Writers named Barnaby Fitzpatrick as Edward VI's companion. But historians note scant primary records proving routine practice. Still, Tudors punished favorites to shame stubborn royal students. Courts prized the prince's body as untouchable and sacred. Punishment diverted onto friends created awkward politics and resentment. Later novels amplified it, and the image stuck. So the myth lingers because it feels uncomfortably plausible. Radium dial painter lip-pointing glowing numbers. The glow sold watches. It also burned through jawbones. In New Jersey, United States Radium hired young painters. Supervisors taught lip-pointing, sharpening brushes with moistened lips. Workers like Grace Fryer later developed anemia and necrosis. Doctors misdiagnosed it first. Dentists saw crumbling jaws. The women sued, winning settlements and landmark safety changes. Publicity pushed factories to abandon ingesting luminous compounds. Radiation badges, shielding, and training became industry standards. Their courtroom testimony still shapes workplace protections today. Mad Hatter, mercury nitrate felt hat maker. Fashionable felt meant trembling hands and personality changes. Hat factories used mercury nitrate to process rabbit fur. In Danbury, Connecticut, workers developed the Hatter's Shakes. Symptoms included tremors, irritability, memory loss, and slurred speech. Ventilation was poor and protections were nearly non-existent. Reformers and physicians linked fumes to neurological damage. By mid-20th century, factories phased mercury processes out. Safer chemistries replaced it, though long-term harm lingered. The phrase survived. The practice, thankfully, mostly didn't. Matchstick girl, dipping white phosphorus sticks. A jawline ache turned into bones glowing sickly green. London's Bryant and May employed women dipping match heads. White phosphorus fumes caused necrosis called phossy jaw. Teeth loosened. Facial wounds oozed and would not heal. In 1888, matchwomen protested wages and dangerous conditions. Public pressure pushed changes and taxed phosphorus matches. International agreements later banned white phosphorus for matches. Factories switched to safer red phosphorus and alternatives. The strike showed industrial hazards could be publicly challenged. Leech collector wading bare-legged in marshes. Bloodletting needed leeches. Someone had to catch them. 19th century collectors waded marshes, letting leeches latch on. They peeled them off and stored them in jars. Demand soared as European medicine prescribed routine bleedings. Some used animals or legs wrapped in cloth bait. Collectors risked infections, exposure, and boggy quicksand patches. Overharvesting crashed populations. Importers searched distant wetlands abroad. The craze faded when bloodletting fell from medical favor. Leeches returned later for microsurgery, under cleaner lab conditions. Medieval gong farmer and night soil man. Somebody kept cities livable by hauling everyone's waste. Gong farmers climbed cesspits in medieval and Tudor England. Work happened at night to avoid complaints and smells. They shoveled sludge into barrels for carting away. Authorities designated dumping grounds outside crowded medieval city walls. Pay could be decent, but social status cratered. Explosive methane sometimes ignited. Pits occasionally collapsed unexpectedly. Regulations evolved as sanitation science slowly caught up. Sewers replaced them, but cities still track waste flows. Rat catcher proud of flea-bitten trophies. Before poison baits, rats meant business and reputation. Victorian catcher Jack Black claimed royal patronage and fame. He bred fancy color morphs from captured street rats. Public shows displayed piles, trophies, and supposedly fearless dogs. Rats carried fleas, transmitting diseases, including deadly plague. Catching meant bites, infections, and occasional spectacular escapes. City councils later funded sanitation campaigns and bounty programs. Better sewers and trash removal cut rat populations down. But every city still needs someone closing food sources. Resurrectionist grave robber, supplying anatomy schools. Medical schools needed bodies. The law supplied too few. Resurrectionists exhumed fresh graves and sold cadavers overnight. In Edinburgh, Burke and Hare turned to murder. They delivered corpses to anatomist Robert Knox for payment. Public outrage followed, with trials and execution for Burke. Parliament responded with the Anatomy Act around 1832. That law broadened legal supply and tightened oversight. Grieving families used iron cages, mort safes, to protect graves. Demand for dissection met regulation, ending the grave robbing trade. Ornamental hermit hired to decorate rich estates. Imagine a garden attraction that occasionally refused to speak. 18th century landowners hired hermits to live theatrically. At Paynes Hill Park, Charles Hamilton built a thatched hermitage. Contracts demanded silence, long beards, and rustic, staged wisdom. Visitors strolled past, admiring curated poverty on lawns. Some hermits quit early, breaking strict performance clauses. Others were mannequins, literal props placed behind windows. The fad faded as tastes shifted to different spectacles. It's performance art, centuries before anyone used that phrase. Knocker-up human alarm clock with pea shooter. Before phone alarms, someone literally shot peas at windows. Industrial towns hired knocker-ups to wake workers early. Mary Smith in London used a long pea shooter. Others tapped with poles or strings reaching top floors. Clients paid weekly, trusting the knock more than roosters. Night watchmen sometimes doubled roles during quiet hours. As alarm clocks cheapened, the trade quickly disappeared. Still, factory gates opened thanks to accurate window tapping. Today's snooze button owes them a tiny historical debt. Link boy torchbearer guiding gentle folk at night. Night streets glowed only where a boy walked beside you. Before gaslight, link boys carried tarred torches for hire. They guided patrons through alleys, coaches, and river stairs. Some doubled as lookouts. A few lured easy marks. Fires dropped, cloaks burned, and paint peeled from doors. City Watch blamed them for pranks and petty crime. Public lighting programs slowly ended the nightly trade. The torch became obsolete. The shortcut stayed risky. Guides left, but dark corners invented new hustles. Barber-surgeon bloodletter with leeches and lancets. One striped pole meant haircuts, tooth pulling, and surgery. Medieval barber surgeons bled patients to balance humors. They lanced boils, set bones, and performed battlefield amputations. Amboise paré advanced techniques, favoring ligatures over cauterization. Training varied wildly. Guilds policed titles and shops. Bloodletting persisted centuries despite shaky, often harmful medical outcomes. Leeches handled delicate sites where knives risked scarring. Anesthesia improved later, moving complex surgery to hospitals. The pole stayed iconic, while the practice modernized away. Professional mourner hired to weep at funerals. Grief, it turns out, was sometimes a paid performance. Ancient Rome hired praefici to lead wailing laments. Victorian Britain used funeral mutes, silent men in black. In parts of China, professional mourners still stage processions. Families signaled status with louder, longer, more elaborate displays. Some performers delivered eulogies. Others specialized in keening. Local rules sometimes curbed theatrics near sacred sites. Payment varied by region, distance, and seasonal demand. Even orchestrated grief still reflected real community ties. Church dog whipper, keeping hounds out of pews. Sunday services paused while someone chased out dogs. English parishes appointed dog whippers to maintain order. They carried long sticks and small whips during sermons. Job included waking dozing parishioners with pointed taps. Records mention named officials in towns like Exeter. As doors improved, strays troubled services less frequently. Some churches honored the role with preserved tools. By the 19th century, the office largely vanished. There's always one usher everyone somehow remembers most. Pure Finder collecting dog dung for tanners. Luxury leather began with buckets of collected dog dung. London's Pure Finders scoured streets for the prized stuff. Tanners used enzymes in dung to soften and clean hides. Finders negotiated prices by weight, freshness, and delivery time. The smell followed them, attracting ridicule and side glances. City ordinances alternately fined and tolerated the trade. Chemical tanning gradually displaced biological soaking methods. Suppliers moved on to rags, bones, and metal scrap. Leather kept improving, thankfully without the neighborhood scavenger parade. Coal trimmer shoveling hellish bunkers on steamships. Speed depended on hidden men shoveling in darkness. Coal trimmers leveled fuel in sweltering ship bunkers. They balanced loads so vessels maintained safe trim. On liners like Titanic, heat and coal dust suffocated. Shifts ran long with little ventilation or water. Coal fires sometimes smoldered for days deep inside. When oil replaced coal, the role quickly disappeared. Engineers still feared uneven loads during rough seas. Work that nobody saw kept glamorous schedules afloat. Powder monkey, sprinting gunpowder across warships. Cannons roared because children sprinted with explosive kegs. Navies used boys to ferry cartridges from magazines. They memorized routes through smoke, splinters, and chaos. Officers relied on speed to keep broadsides firing. Explosions, fires, and falling masts killed runners instantly. Some later advanced to gunners after surviving multiple battles. Naval tactics modernized. Cordite charges arrived in canisters. With safer handling, the child runner finally disappeared. Every volley hit a kid's sprint behind the smoke. Breaker boy picking rocks from coal conveyors. Childhood paused at a conveyor belt and coal. Breaker boys in Pennsylvania separated slate from anthracite. They crouched for hours, fingers numb and lungs gritty. Photographer Lewis Hine documented faces and ragged clothes. Accidents mangled hands. Falling into gears was fatal. Reformers pushed laws limiting ages and working hours. Mechanization and regulation reduced child labor dramatically across mines. Families still depended on wages during economic slumps. The breaker rooms fell silent as jobs finally changed. Lamplighter lighting and dousing street lamps. Evening arrived when a ladder touched the lamppost. Lamplighters walked routes, lighting and later extinguishing flames. Gas networks fed rows of lamps through cities. Crews cleaned glass, trimmed wicks, and repaired fittings. Fog, wind, and rain complicated timing and safety. Some carried poles with flames, others used pilot tapers. Electric bulbs rolled out, shrinking the trade gradually. A few landmark districts kept ceremonial lamplighters for visitors. The ritual lingered, even as grids hummed overhead. Bed warmer, scorching mattresses with hot coals. Comfort arrived smoky, and sometimes it never arrived. Households heated beds using pans filled with embers. Servants swung them under sheets before people slept. Too hot, and linen scorched, or houses caught fire. Scented herbs sometimes masked the smoky bedding smell. Warming pans showed status in engraved brass or copper. Brick warmers and hot water bottles later replaced them. Central heating eventually ended the nightly scorch dance. Cozy won, but scorch marks told many cautionary tales. Window tax inspector counting house windows for levy. People bricked windows because taxes counted their daylight. Britain imposed a window tax beginning in the 1690s. Inspectors tallied panes to calculate annual charges owed. Owners blocked openings to reduce assessed tax liability quickly. Critics called it a tax on light and health. Public health advocates later argued for cleaner, brighter housing. Parliament eventually repealed it after persistent public complaints. The bricked squares still puzzle passers-by on old streets. Hidden daylight became a quiet archive of fiscal history. Mudlark child scavenger on filthy riverbanks. Fortunes sometimes started with a filthy riverbed find. Victorian mudlarks combed the Thames at low tide. They found nails, coins, rope, and occasional curiosities. Cuts festered from glass, sewage, and industrial runoff. Police tolerated them while restricting dangerous river stairs. Dealers bought fines, pawnbrokers advanced tiny survival sums. Modern hobbyists now need permits and strict reporting. The tide still burps up fragments of London's past. Every mud print rewrites another line of riverside history. Bone grubber, rummaging dust heaps for scraps. Trash heaps were mines for glue, buttons, and china. Bone grubbers picked carcass remnants from urban refuse. They sold bones to renderers for fat and dye. Rag and bone men also gathered scrap metal and rags. Dickens sketched them amid fog, mud, and chimneys. Disease spread easily through cuts and contaminated water. Municipal sanitation grew, shrinking profitable scavenging routes. Later, recycling yards formalized buying and processing streams. But nothing beats a determined picker with sharp eyes. Fuller treading wool in stinking urine vats. Soft cloth began with feet in warm, stale urine. Fullers cleaned and thickened wool by treading vats. Ammonia in collected urine helped strip oils efficiently. Roman phalanocyte in Pompeii show workrooms and drains. Workers stomped rhythmically, then rinsed cloth in channels. Guilds later adopted soap and mechanical fulling mills. The smell spread across neighborhoods despite official fines. Textile centers prospered while workers endured constant fumes. Fashion's softness started with chemistry nobody wanted nearby. Asbestos sprayer coating buildings in magic mineral. Fireproof dreams stuck, and so did microscopic needles. Mid-century crews sprayed asbestos onto beams and ceilings. It insulated theaters, ships, schools, and boiler rooms. Workers inhaled fibers, later developing scarring and cancers. Medical evidence accumulated. Regulations tightened hazardous removal procedures. Many countries banned or limited new asbestos uses. Abatement teams now seal sites and wear respirators. Old buildings still hide friable, crumbling panels inside. The miracle material left a costly, careful cleanup. Arsenic green pigment mixer for wallpaper. That fashionable green sometimes gassed entire sitting rooms. Sheila's green and Paris green contained arsenic compounds. Wallpaper makers mixed powders that later emitted arsenic gases. Damp rooms encouraged molds that converted pigment to vapors. Victorian illnesses puzzled doctors until exposure patterns emerged. Some linked Napoleon's exile wallpaper to chronic exposure. Safer dyes gradually replaced arsenical greens in interiors. Manufacturers warned less, consumers learned the hard way. The color of envy proved dangerously true indoors. Canary in coal mines keeper sacrificing birds for safety. A quiet song once warned of invisible danger. Miners carried canaries to detect deadly gas pockets. When birds weakened, crews evacuated and vented tunnels. Handlers cared for cages, food, and transport underground. Chemical detectors later replaced birds with reliable readings. Some regions retired canaries as late as the 1980s. Training emphasized quick response when behavior changed suddenly. Today, sensors and ventilation standards guard against asphyxiants. But the yellow cages still symbolize vigilance in hazards. Human scarecrow paid to stand in fields. Harvests depended on one person waving arms all day. Bird scarers guarded crops, beating tins and clapping boards. Farmers hired children seasonally across rural Britain's counties. They whistled, ran, and learned flock habits quickly. Weather-soaked clothes, pay rarely covered ruined shoes. Kites, scare lines, and dogs sometimes shared duties. Modern devices use sounds and reflective tapes instead. Still, a human presence spooks persistent, curious birds. The job is simple until the geese stop caring. Water slide tester, checking thrills and bruises. Yes, someone rode slides for a living, and repeatedly. Resort companies hired testers to rate speed and safety. One British worker, Tommy Lynch, became briefly internet famous. Selfers logged heights, seams, water flow, and rider comfort. They checked joins that snagged suits or skin painfully. Design tweaks followed before parks opened high-throughput attractions. It sounds dreamy until bruises stack after 20 runs. Liability teams required logs, measurements, and constant hydration. Fun was work, stopwatch in hand, counted by splashes. Pet food tasters sampling kibble for flavor. Someone chews kibble so your dog eats dinner. Sensory analysts evaluate aroma, texture, and aftertaste scientifically. They taste, then spit, like wine professionals during profiling. Labs compare human panels with animal feeding trials. Consistency matters because pets reject sudden formula shifts. Analysts learn acronyms for flavor notes and defects. Quality control flags rancidity, stale grains, or off odors. Manufacturers reformulate, balancing nutrition, palatability, and price. Your dog's wag sometimes starts with a grimace upstairs. Armpit sniffer odor judge for deodorant labs. Yes, armpits get scored on a tidy numeric scale. Trained evaluators smell swabs after controlled exercise sessions. Labs randomize samples carefully to avoid biased ratings. Panels calibrate noses using reference odors and charts. Chemists adjust formulas based on intensity and persistence. Ethics require consent, privacy, and strict sanitation protocols. Field tests include commuting, gyms, and hot outdoor days. A good product means judges barely notice anything at all. Behind every fresh morning, a lab quietly sniffed yesterday. Mosquito feeder offering arms to blood-hungry insects. Keeping colonies alive meant deliberately offering your arm. Research labs maintain mosquitoes for disease and repellent studies. Technicians rest forearms on cages for scheduled feedings. Protective screens guide bites, limiting numbers and locations. Protocols track exposure times, reactions, and colony health. Some species transmit pathogens. Labs segregate non-infected lines. Alternatives include warmed membranes with animal blood reservoirs. Still, human skin helps maintain feeding behavior over generations. The task is controlled, brief, and surprisingly uneventful. Professional queue sitter waiting in lines for you. If a line is money, someone will monetize waiting. Entrepreneurs hold spots outside launches and public hearings. Clients text updates while grabbing coffee or working. Some services emerged around popular phone releases initially. Rules vary. Certain government lines restrict paid placeholders. Cold nights, rain, and shifting policies complicate scheduling. Reputation matters because clients trust handoffs under pressure. Peak demand spikes near concerts, courtrooms, and product drops. They turn idle time into a portable, rentable asset. Tokyo subway pusher, Oshiya, packing commuters in. Morning platforms flood, then gloved hands restore order. Tokyo stations employ attendants called Oshiya during rush. They press gently so doors can close safely. Shinjuku and Shibuya see legendary crowding on weekdays. Staff coordinate whistles, platform markings, and train intervals. Passengers expect precision. Delays ripple across multiple lines. Etiquette posters promote backpacks forward and phones away. Newer signaling and more cars reduce manual pushing, but peak minutes still need an extra respectful nudge. Pied Piper of Hamelin, legendary pest control. A town paid a piper and then paid dearly. Hamelin in Germany tells of rats and children. A musician charmed vermin away, then demanded payment. Officials refused. The piper returned and led children. Medieval chronicles mention a date around the 1280s. Later stories added rats, bright clothes, and mountains. Hamelin displays imagery and a street without music. Scholars debate causes, from migration to disease or crusades. Legend endures because vanished children demand some explanation.